Throughout my life, there is a scent of fragrance. You mentioned how we used to sit by the mouth of the Tamsui River, watching the sunset and the moon rise from the water's surface. You said, we used to drink and sing, watching the moon rise from the water, casting its light and shadow onto the river. The waves of the water would stretch and flatten the moonlight. At the time, it was just interesting, even intoxicating. I never thought that after many years of leaving the country, I would see the moon in the Mississippi River and be reminded of our youth. Our country's mountains and rivers are like the moon in the water or the flowers in the mirror, stretched and flattened, and eventually, our young years become a fleeting moment like the reflection of the moon in the water. All of these emotions brought you to tears by the banks of the Mississippi River, and I also felt a sense of melancholy after reading your words. In just a blink of an eye, we have already experienced several love affairs, and we have also passed through the tumultuous times of life, stretched and flattened. Do you remember? Back then, we would sit in the wooden cabin in Muja and compose poetry against the wall. My cabin was desolate with phrases and words written by friends, and the plaque on the door had a poem titled, The Trapped Dragon's Song. One late night, I was reading Qian Zhongshu's On Art, under a small lamp, and the moonlight was shining on the small lake outside the window. I could hear the distant croaks of frogs, and I wrote 2 paragraphs from the book on the wall with a brush. The reflection of the moon in the water and the flowers in the mirror can be seen but not touched. It is only with this water that the moon can be reflected in the pond, and only with this mirror that the flower can be reflected on the face. The nature and tone of the water and mirror are like the spirit of the wind and the image of the moon and flowers. Only when the water is clear and the mirror is bright can the flowers and moon be vividly reflected. At that time, I was quite impoverished, living in a small room with only one desk. All I had were books and love, but I was rich. I pushed open the window, and there was a big banyan tree standing outside the window. Below the tree was a small lake filled with lotus flowers, and the nearby villagers were all so friendly. Sometimes, I had to borrow money from people to buy a wind chime for my girlfriend, and I would eat only with the books. You would come with wine and a zither, and when you saw my situation, you wrote 2 lines on my doorstep. The moon will not lose its brightness when it is missing a piece, and a sword will not lose its sharpness when it is broken. After getting drunk, I also sang loudly, I'm drunk and want to sleep. Please go, but tomorrow morning, please bring your zither with you. At that time, it seemed that as long as we had a cup of wine and a scroll, we felt satisfied and thought that there was still a lot to be done. Later, when I was so poor that I couldn't afford to pay the rent, I jumped out of that wooden house through the window. A few days ago, I passed by there and took a detour to see the wooden house I couldn't afford to pay the rent of 300 yuan per month. The wooden house has turned into a high-rise building, the soul of the big banyan tree is no longer there, and the small lake has been covered into an apartment. I stood there for a long time, feeling lost and forgot where I was, just like the person in the Beijing Opera, the Peony Pavilion. It made me think that life is just a big dream, and the fragrance of books, alcohol, youthful love, and dreams are all far away. It is really like flowers in the mirror, the moon on the water, leaving only thoughts behind. But the important thing is a kind of response. If the mirror is clear, even if the flowers have withered, they have been clearly reflected. If the water is clear, even if the moon has sunk, it has left clear ripples. Water and mirrors seem to be eternal things, as obvious as the blockades in the chest. Therefore, flowers and the moon, although they bloom and wither, rise and fall, they are still a valuable trace. We all know that striking a stone to make fire is an ancestor's story. Originally, two lifeless stones collided, but fire was born because there was already a spark in the stone. Even the most cold-hearted things have their sensitive side. Continuously striking produces continuous sparks, and getting fire is not difficult, but it is difficult to keep that small spark from extinguishing. Mirrors and flowers, water and moon, were originally unrelated, but when they meet, they create a fleeting beauty. How can we make that beauty last? We can only rely on our hearts. As I was writing this letter to you, two ancient couplets suddenly came to mind. Clipping feathers in the cage, looking up at the soaring of 100 birds, watching the sinking of a ship on the side, sitting and reading the passing of 1,000 sails. Isn't love and the beauty and suffering of life like this? The birds of time fly by the window one by one, and the sails of life sail away one by one from the eyes. Many fly far away, and many are flying over from those unpredictable corners. I remember when you first arrived in Connecticut, you cried because you couldn't get a cup of lemonade mixed with lovegrass jelly. It was also a response mixed with homesickness and youthful sentiment. I know that I can never go back to living in that wooden house again, and I also know that we can never return to those pure and genuine years in the wooden house. At this time of year, what we need to grasp is not flowers and the moon, but water and mirrors. As long as we maintain a clear and pure heart like a water mirror, we will still have new flowers and rising moons. There is a verse I have memorized, it's Chen Yuya's, The Ferry at River's Edge. Remember the day we drank on the bridge at noon, sitting among many heroes. The long ditch flows silently with the moon, and in the sparse shadows of the apricot blossoms, someone plays a flute until dawn. For more than 20 years, it has become a dream. Although my body is still here, it's still surprising. When I climb a small attic to look at the new clear sky, there are so many events of the past and present. When fishermen sing in the middle of the night, I have always felt that in the fateful world beyond our grasp, we should not be concerned with heartless betrayal or the scars of suffering. As long as we maintain a fragrant bloom, we can emit it from our humble abode's heart under the solitary lamp in the long night, and that will suffice. Even stones can spark fire, so what else is there to fear? Snow and love, living in a world of ice and snow all year round, where all you can see is a vast expanse of silver white with no discernible distance, edge, or boundary. What kind of situation would arise from such a landscape? A friend of mine expressed his interest in the culture and life of the Inuit people and found their various practices in the harsh winter winds quite fascinating. He mentioned that the Inuit language has 30 different words for snow, used to distinguish the various characteristics of the white world. Through careful and detailed observation over a long period of time, the Inuit people have been able to discern the differences in color and structure between the different types of snow, beyond what we usually recognize. Furthermore, due to the fact that the environment only contains snow and ice, in order to accurately express their surroundings in language and writing, they had to develop 30 different words for snow. The snow and the Inuit people's way of life are intricately intertwined, as they use the snow for survival, transportation, and protection from the elements. This unique relationship between the Inuit people and the snow is a reflection of their harmonious and peaceful coexistence with nature. The friend said again, the Inuit people have an astonishing understanding of terrain and wind direction due to their sharp observational skills. In seemingly monotonous places where outsiders see no reference points, they see many rich ones. On dark and stormy nights when even the sled dogs hesitate, the hunters still venture out without hesitation. They locate their way by the direction in which their fur clothing and soft hairs sway, and they read the wind and waves through the patterns they create on their faces and bottoms. They can discern wind marks on snow ridges and navigate in zero visibility by listening to bird calls and smelling the earth and waves. They do not merely observe, but they participate. We finally understand why there are so many snow characters in the Inuits' writing. They are not observing or feeling the snow, but rather they are the people of the snow. Snow is an inherent part of their lives, and they have a genuine experience with it. Ironically, their art carvings usually do not depict facial features. They strip life down to its bare essentials, and art follows suit. For the Inuit, posture and movement are more important than clear facial features. They express their thoughts through actions rather than facial expressions. Constant movement can resist wind and snow, as wind blows at over 70 miles per hour in that icy, frozen land. Living there for a long time can cause a decrease in white blood cells, a lower resistance to disease, and hypoxia and alkalosis in the whole body. However, this land is the Inuit people's favorite. Their love for this land is understandable because snow is an inherent part of their lives. They use snow to bathe newborns for the first time, and they bury their dead in snow. After exploring the meaning of snow to the Inuit, I realize that we understand almost nothing about anything around us compared to their understanding of snow. Let's take love, for example. Love is so diverse and complicated in our world, yet we only have one word to express it, which is quite inadequate. The vast literature and art of the past exist to express one word, love. They describe the joys and sorrows, grudges and animosity, and the positive and negative aspects of love. They observe love from different perspectives and even participate in it. However, due to the multiple meanings of words and personal experiences, these descriptions of love often fall short. On the bright side, they give rise to multiple interpretations. However, from a negative point of view, they are not as clear and authentic as the Inuit people's portrayal of snow. Why is it that our lives are so influenced by love, and yet we cannot express the essence of love precisely? When we face the unknowns of life, can we determine the direction of love just by the scent of the air, the flutter of a garment in the wind, the sound of waves crashing against the shore, or even just the flight of a bird, and decisively set out to pursue it? In fact, the great emotion of love is like a sheet of pure white snow at a macro level, and sensitive people can find different things within it. Only one's personal experience of love can be the most authentic. Dull people only see a sheet of white and cannot fathom the deep mystery and complexity that lie beneath its seemingly identical surface. Perhaps some people have never experienced love, just as some people have never seen snow in their lifetime. The Inuit people's detailed and acute perception of snow is the result of centuries of refinement. This leads us to wonder how we can refine our love in this modern age. Perhaps one day, we too can depict over 30 different nuances of love from a single emotion that has no distance, no boundaries, and no edges. On that day, the completion of a stage of love in our lives will have been achieved. Watching clouds. Every day, he and she went up to the mountains to watch the clouds. He felt that being able to watch clouds with her was like the mountains, solemn and self-sufficient. Clouds are ever-changing, not only in shape, but also in color. But there is a common scene in the clouds that often occurs. It is when two clouds float towards each other in opposite directions or move in the same direction. After a chase, they merge into one, making it impossible to tell that they were originally two clouds. There is also another kind, where one cloud suddenly splits into two and the two clouds move in different directions, never to meet again. He told her about his observations of the clouds. "We are like the clouds that occasionally meet in the sky. I hope we are like the first kind." As he spoke, the two clouds that had merged suddenly gathered with many other clouds and a summer downpour began. They ran back home, and when the rain stopped, the sky was clear and there were no more clouds. He forgot that sometimes clouds can also shed tears of sadness and disappear in them. The next year, they parted ways. Clouds still exist in the sky, merging and separating, but every time he watches the clouds, he goes crazy. When the moon accompanies us, we feel that it is the only one, shining only for us. This is the truth. Moon to the heart. Over 20 years ago, there were no street lights in the countryside, and it was nearly pitch black when walking through the fields at night to get back home. Usually, one relied on the faint light of the sky to feel their way home. Occasionally, when stars appeared, it became brighter, and one could feel the radiance of the stars within their heart. If there was a moon, the heart would settle entirely, and there would be no fear of the dark at all. In the southern part of Taiwan, especially on summer nights, the moon's light appeared particularly brilliant, making the entire mountain road clear and visible. It is challenging to describe the moonlight in the countryside. Unlike the sun's projection, which comes from the outside, its radiance appears to seep through the grass, trees, streets, flowers, leaves, and even the eaves and walls, giving the impression that all things have their own natural light. If it's foggy at night, and fireflies fly in groups, they seem like the elves who have dropped out of the moonlight. Everything under the moonlight gains its radiance. It's incredible. What's even more amazing is that under the moonlight, one can also feel that their heart is illuminated by the moonlight. Although the radiance isn't as warm as sunlight, it's refreshing, and one can feel the coolness from their head to their toes. Walking a few steps, lifting one's head, the moon always follows us and shines on us. In our childhood memories, the moon had a kind of friendly life and was like a person carrying a lamp, guiding us on the way. Wherever we went, the moon accompanied us, on the road, at the mountaintop, along the river, and even in front of our home's doorstep. Until now, the memories of looking at the moon during childhood and the countryside under the moonlight are still vivid. However, when it comes to the moon following us, there are some misperceptions. Is it an illusion or reality? It can be said that it's both an illusion and reality. Since we know there is only one moon, but everyone believes that the moon follows them, it is an illusion. But when the moon accompanies us, we feel that the moon is unique, shining only for us, and this is the reality. Only when we grow up do we realize that every person has a moon in their heart that is unique, bright and pure. When the moon shines on us, it reflects the moonlight, making us feel like the moon in the sky is also the moon in our heart. In this world, every person's heart has the moon buried within, it's just that we're unaware of it. Only a few people, even in the darkest moments, still radiate the moon's light. They are the ones who perceive themselves as the moon. This is why Zen Buddhism calls pointing directly at the human heart as pointing at the moon, showing the moon in the sky to guide people. When they see the moon, they should forget about pointing and discard the teachings. Everyone's heart has the radiance of the moon, and when it appears, one should abandon teachings. It merely indicates that the moon in one's heart corresponds to the moon in the sky, and that the 1,000 rivers have 1,000 moons, 10,000 miles are without clouds or a trace of the moon. Even if there are 1,000 rivers, every one of them has a bright moon within. In the past, many moon-related poems have been written, some of which have expressed the realm of the moon in the heart, such as Wang Yangming's The Moon-Covered Mountain House, In the past, many poems were written about the moon, and some of them were able to express the state of the moon in the heart. For example, Wang Yangming's Mountain Cottage covered by the moon. The mountain is close, and the moon appears small and distant. It is said that the mountain is larger than the moon. If a person had eyes as big as the sky, they would see that the mountain is high and the moon is wide. Indeed, if we could expand the aperture of our hearts and minds to be as big as the sky, wouldn't the moon be there? However, most people have small hearts and minds, and when they see a mountain and the mountain appears larger than the moon. There is also a poem by the Song Dynasty philosopher Shao Yang called A Clear Night Song. The moon reaches the center of the sky, and the wind comes over the surface of the water. It has a clear and pure meaning, but few people understand it. When the moon reaches the center of the sky and the wind blows over the water, it has a clear and pure meaning that only the attentive can appreciate, and most people cannot understand it. If we only see the moon in the sky without seeing the moon in our hearts, then the moon is just a fleeting encounter for us, and how can we talk about the eternal beauty of it? Therefore, we should return to ourselves and let our own light shine forth. An important yet not urgent matter. I had made plans with a friend to go hiking together and then have tea at home after coming down from the mountain. However, before we set off in the morning, I received a call from him saying, "I won't be able to join you for the hike because there's an urgent matter at work." As usual, I went hiking alone. I sat on a rock at the summit, looking at the bustling city of Taipei's East District. Even in the early morning, cars were already crowded on the streets, like a chain of ants scurrying around. All these people and cars must be rushing for some urgent matter. In comparison, hiking and having tea seemed insignificant. We often sacrifice non-urgent matters to attend to urgent ones. For example, sacrificing sleep for overtime work, sacrificing meal times for business performance, sacrificing time with loved ones for social events, sacrificing tea time with friends for career advancement. Indeed, urgent matters cannot be ignored. However, the urgency of life is never ending, and we end up spending most of our lives in a state of urgency. Life has many important yet not urgent matters. For example, relaxing and meditating every day, enjoying a leisurely meal, savoring the fragrance of tea, taking a walk in nature, admiring the changing scenery of mountains and clouds, listening to the rain, the stream, music, reading books about people, love, and leisure. There are many important matters that are difficult to express in words, but urgent matters take up all the space. Life's space is limited, and when it is filled with urgent matters, it becomes like a city full of cars but without green spaces. Green spaces are important, cars are urgent. Trees are important, buildings are urgent. Clouds are important, planes are urgent. Contentment is important, desires are urgent. Peace of mind is important, hospitals are urgent. If a person spends 8 hours a day chasing after material possessions and worldly matters, can't they spare 80 minutes to ponder important matters? If not, they can start with 8 minutes. 8 minutes of enlightenment, 8 minutes of meditation, 8 minutes of focus, 8 minutes of relaxation, 8 minutes of selflessness, 8 minutes of harmony with the universe, 8 minutes of embracing simplicity and truth. Life will begin to change from these 8 minutes, and everyday life will become more leisurely and enjoyable. The most beautiful in the most bitter. There is so much suffering in the world, the only compensation is the little joys in life, and the little suspense. Isaac Bashevis Singer. Every time I visit the National Palace Museum in Taipei, I always take a detour to see the white jade bitter gourd. The white jade bitter gourd and the jadeite cabbage are both treasures of the National Palace Museum in Taipei, each no bigger than the palm of one's hand. The beauty of the white jade bitter gourd lies in its jade-like quality, gentle and restrained, while that of the jadeite cabbage is in its ingenuity, flexibility, and exquisite delicacy. Compared to the jadeite cabbage, I prefer the white jade bitter gourd. I often stand in front of it, lost in thought. If I were to choose the most beautiful fruit in the world, it would have to be the bitter gourd. The beauty of the bitter gourd is embodied in the piece of fine jade, and if a real bitter gourd were placed in a museum display case, its beauty would also be breathtaking. The wonder of it all is that the most beautiful fruit in the world is also the most bitter. Does this not imply a deep Zen-like philosophy? The bitter gourd is not only beautiful, but it is beautiful from the moment it is born until it withers away in old age. My father once grew a field of bitter gourd, with bamboo structures covering the entire acre. The new bitter gourd vines grew at an astonishing pace, racing up the bamboo structures. The palm-sized leaves chased the stems and tendrils, soon filling the entire structure. When the flowers bloomed, the entire structure was covered with yellow flowers overnight. The bitter gourd flowers shook their beautiful hands in the morning breeze. Children standing beneath them were always stunned by their beauty. Every day I went to see the bitter gourd. I saw the thin, finger-like gourds emerging from the end of the flowers, covered with fine hairs, and the flowers, still clinging to the top like yellow umbrellas, as if the tiny bitter gourds were shielding themselves from the scorching sun in southern Taiwan. The beautiful bitter gourd took shape, like a white jade-bearing fruit, a mahogany with a third eye, and like the hair knot on a Buddha statue, covering the entire gourd. When I walked through the bitter gourd structure on my way to school in the morning, the dew on every bitter gourd glistened like crystal, revealing a transparent and gentle beauty. The gourd season passed, and the leaves on the gourd vines wilted quickly, leaving only twisting vines. My mother would cut the vines on moonlit nights and put them in a glass jar. After a day and night, each bitter gourd vine would shed a few tears. She would collect the tears in the jar, creating the precious, bitter gourd frost, said to be a beauty product that is even more cooling and whitening than watermelon frost. As the melon season passes, the leaves on the melon trellis quickly wither, leaving only the twisting vines. On moonlit nights, my mother would cut the vines and stuff them into glass jars. After a day and a night, each bitter melon vine sheds a few tears, which are then collected and bottled to make the precious, bitter melon frost. It is said to be a beauty elixir, even cooler and whiter than watermelon frost. This is the life story of bitter melon, almost existing for the sake of beauty. Its flowers, fruits, vines, and even the last few drops of tears are all given to mankind without reservation. Since childhood, I have had a fondness for bitter melon. Not only for its profound taste, but also for its life story and the Zen-like philosophy it embodies. The most beautiful melon is also the most bitter. For those who pursue a beautiful life, shouldn't they also be prepared for bitterness and have the endurance to bear it? The bitter melon, which exists to give, is like a bodhisattva who exists to show compassion. The bodhisattva gives everything, including his head, bone, and blood, to the world, because he deeply understands the suffering of life and offers all the good to the bitter juice of life. I love the fable about bitter melon. There was a group of disciples who were about to set out on a pilgrimage and say goodbye to their master. The master gave them a bitter melon and said, "Take this bitter melon with you on your pilgrimage. When you enter the main hall, place the melon on the altar, receive worship, bathe in holy water, and cleanse the bitter melon with the holy water. After the pilgrimage, bring the bitter melon back. The disciples went on a long pilgrimage, carrying the bitter melon with them all the way, feeling that the bitter melon had become sacred. When they finally returned to the temple, the eldest disciple held the bitter melon in both hands and said to the Master, "Master, we have returned from our pilgrimage. According to your instructions, this bitter melon has received countless worship, bathed in many holy waters. Now, how should we treat this bitter melon?" The Master replied, "Cook it and have it for dinner tonight." That night, the Master and disciples ate the bitter melon together. The Master took a bite and said with emotion, "This bitter melon has completed the pilgrimage, received worship, bathed in holy water, but the taste is still the same bitter." Legend has it that some disciples were enlightened on the spot. Life is full of bitterness, whether it is through spiritual cultivation or worldly indulgence, through power and fame or poverty and hardship, through literature, history, philosophy or sensual pleasures. The essential bitterness of life will not change. The bitter melon on the trellis, placed on a wealthy banquet table alongside shark fin and bird's nest, or on a poor man's dinner table with cabbage and tofu, still has the same bitter taste. For those who walk through hardships, only by focusing on moving forward and not losing the beautiful and pilgrim-like mindset in the midst of hardships, can one truly experience the profound meaning within. Thinking of bitter gourd, I recall scenes from the past where I traversed through areca nut forests, lemon orchards, and chili fields. The areca nut trees in Taidong are blooming, with their fragrance spreading for miles, making one feel clear-headed. Who would have thought that the enchanting fruit came from such a fresh and fragrant flower? Several lemon orchards in Neiman, Kaohsiung are in full bloom. We went to visit our cousin who lives in the orchard and were intoxicated by the sweet fragrance of the lemon flowers, as if we had soaked in a whole barrel of fragrant oil. Who could have imagined that the extremely sour fruit was formed from flowers that were so sweet and fragrant? A patch of bright red chili fields in Tianwei, Changhua made me stop and stare in amazement. Countless chili peppers were a brilliant red, making any beautiful flower pale in comparison. Who would have thought that the extremely spicy facing heaven chili peppers had such a beautiful past life? Sour, sweet, bitter, and spicy, all have profound meanings. I stand in front of the white jade bitter gourd and ponder, if life can be captured in an eternal moment, bitterness, collection, destruction, and the way, are all undifferentiated. Serene pleasure. During my youth, I read a quatrain by Su Shi that I admired very much and still can recite today. Light rain and slanting wind bring a slight chill, misty smoke, sparse willows, and a charming sunny bank. As I venture into the clear Luo River and vague Wai River, blossoms of snow and milk foam dance in the noonday cups. With local sorrel and wild chrysanthemum for the spring platter, the pleasure on earth is in simple things, so satisfying and clear. Su Shi wrote this quatrain on the 24th day of the 12th lunar month in the 7th year of the Yuanfeng era, 1084, while on a trip to the southern mountain with his friend Lu Qianshu from Sizhou. They drank a small cup of wine floating with snow and milk foam in the South Mountain, along with fresh sprouts of sorrel, chrysanthemum, bamboo shoots, and wild grass from the spring day, and then Su Shi exclaimed, "The pleasure on earth is in simple things." The reason why I remember this quatrain deeply is mainly because of the following sentence that I love. The pleasure on earth is in simple things, so satisfying and clear. What is serene pleasure? It is almost impossible to translate, and can be described as subtle joy. This kind of subtle joy does not come from elsewhere but from a love for calm, light, and simple life. When someone can appreciate the fragrance of wild vegetables more than expensive delicacies, or when someone can find more pleasure in the rocks beside the road than diamonds, or when someone is more moved by the sounds of birds in the woods than by the spectacle of caged birds, or even when someone can feel the peace of mind by quietly sipping a pot of oolong tea rather than being in a noisy banquet. These are all examples of serene pleasure. The reason why serene pleasure is so desirable is that it requires no demands from life, nor does it depend on material conditions, but on the refinement of the mind. The state of serene pleasure is very high, and it is not the same as Li Bai's self-exile, or the ecstatic joy of enjoy yourself while you can, never mind if you empty your golden cup, or the sorrowful sentiment of Du Fu's tears drop on a beautiful landscape, but they cannot last forever, or the helpless sigh of we come to this world, but like flotsam on the water, floating aimlessly, by Wang Guowei. We live in this world with countless ways of life, whether it's Wen Tianxiang's, since ancient times, who hasn't died. Hold fast to one's principles, shining bright in history, which we can easily empathize with his passionate spirit. Or Yang Shu's, love in this life is nothing but foolishness. This sorrow has nothing to do with wind and moon, which we can also relate to his everlasting love. Or Nalan Xingda's, affections once abundant are now scarce, and now I truly regret my excessive emotions, which we can also understand his helpless sorrow. But serene pleasure is different. Especially for modern people, serene pleasure is almost non-existent. What do we consider serene pleasure? We want to take a leisurely walk along the street, but the constant sounds of people and cars pass by, and there is almost no pure quiet moment in a day. We go to a restaurant and want to eat some light dishes, but they are almost impossible to find. Too much oil, too much salt, and too many flavors. Sometimes we have nothing to do, and our mood is only suitable for going out with friends to drink a cup of tea or coffee. Unfortunately, even if we have the right mood and friends, it is hard to find a place to go. The places that serve tea and coffee are often noisy, and it's difficult to find a spot to drink tea while enjoying the scenery. In this mundane world, there is no longer any pure tranquility. So let's go to the mountains or the beach. But even the mountains and beaches are not pure anymore. Wherever people can go, there is garbage, filth, and noise. There are a few places I used to frequent, such as the White Cloud Villa in Yangmingshan. I would order a pot of orchid tea, look down at the skyscrapers and human desires piled up in the Taipei Basin, and drink my tea, which contained a hint of tranquility. There is also a small lake by the mountain road between Baitu and Yangmingshan. There, a vendor sells kung fu tea on a small tea table and rattan lounge chairs. I would drive there alone, walk along the stone path, order a pot of tea, and lie down on the lounge chair. Sometimes the lotus flowers in the lake bloomed, creating a stunning scene of silence. Once, I went there with a friend and we drank tea silently on the lounge chairs for an entire afternoon. At that moment, I thought to myself, this must be the pure tranquility that people talk about. Now, I can't go to these places anymore. It's only heartbreaking to go there. The lake is no longer filled with lotus flowers, but with floating soda cans. The edge of the lake is no longer a place to lie down quietly because there are more people than grass, and the stone path has been worn down. On weekends, it's hard to walk without pushing through the crowd, let alone sit down and drink some tea. If you're unlucky, you might encounter street racers speeding by or young people dancing with their portable karaoke machines. At that moment, all your senses overload and there is no longer any tranquility, let alone pure tranquility. The search for pure tranquility becomes increasingly difficult with each passing day. When I was a student, I had a friend who lived at the foot of Zhongyuantong Temple. I often took the bumpy bus to visit her, and the two of us wandered aimlessly along the stone steps up the mountain, sitting, stopping, and looking around. Along the sides of the stone steps were hibiscus flowers growing haphazardly. As we walked, we picked a ripe hibiscus flower and sucked the nectar from its base. Its sweetness was like honey, but its fragrance surpassed it. The taste of one flower gently held in our mouths gave us a joy that only spring can bring. Yuantong Temple is a temple entirely built of solid stone, with black and strong rocks sitting in the mountain like an immortal castle. Surrounded by lush trees and a gentle breeze, we stood in the front yard paved with stone slabs, gazing at the small town below. The temple was clear and quiet, and the feeling of walking up such a high mountain and looking out into the distance from that platform was like experiencing the purest joy in life. Later, my friend got married and left Taiwan. I visited Yuantong Temple again, and the mountain path had been opened up, allowing cars to drive up the mountain. Few people walked along the small mountain path. Outside the temple's gate were many vendors, including a stall selling children's mechanical horses that played noisy children's songs that shook the mountain. Two sausage stalls smoked white smoke, and the scent of roasted sausages drifted towards the temple's big Buddha. A mother beat two children because she did not allow them to eat sausages, and their intense cries were piercing and urgent. I didn't even enter Yuantong Temple's gate, silently turning and leaving. The mountain was still the same mountain, the temple was still the same temple, but why did it feel completely different? Did I lose something? What I lost was pure joy. The feeling when I descended the mountain was unbearable. I thought of my scattered friend, and my mood was not sad, just melancholy. A verse and a poem surfaced in my mind. The verse was by Li Yu, "Who can ascend the high tower?" I remember the clear autumn sky I once gazed upon. The past is now empty, just like a dream. The poem was by Li Yu. People say the setting sun is at the edge of the sky. Looking towards the edge of the sky, I cannot see home. I already hate the green mountains blocking my way. Even the green mountains are covered by the evening clouds. It was twilight at the time, and I truly saw a tragic orange color in the smoggy sunset in the city. When I was 20 and feeling down, I used to go horseback riding at the stable across from the youth park. Although these horses were slow-moving due to being tamed, they were all young and tall with smooth coats. With a squeeze of my legs, they would bolt forward like an arrow, with the wind rushing past my ears. I remember most vividly the bright green of the grass moving swiftly as the horse ran, like vibrant life juice flowing through it. After a few rounds, all my negative emotions dissipated into the wind, the green grass, and the galloping of the horse. Especially on winter mornings, when I would hold the reins and the horse stood still, kicking its long legs and exhaling puffs of white breath from its nostrils. That breath could linger for a long time, and when it dissipated into the air, I felt a sense of release. After horseback riding, I would go for a walk in the youth park, walking under rows of trees with the cold and robust air flowing through the forest. I could take deep breaths and taste the elements in the air, which was full of the essence of tranquility. Recently, one day, I suddenly thought of horseback riding, which I hadn't done in over a decade. When I arrived at the horse riding arena in the youth park, I was almost taken aback. There wasn't a single blade of grass left in the large arena. Perhaps only Taiwan has a horse riding arena without a single blade of grass. When the horse galloped, dust billowed, and the air was filled with suffocating yellow soil, obscuring people's eyes. The horse was old, and its coat was mottled and lost its luster. The scariest thing was that I don't know when a plastic shed was erected in the horse arena, with a cement floor, looking very ugly, and inside it were rows of mechanical horses for people to ride, making a deafening noise. Why sacrifice this horse arena for a slight profit? Horses getting old is something I know, and people changing is also something I know, but placing mechanical horses where there should be real horses, and not having a single blade of grass where horses should run, is something I cannot understand. Across from the horse arena was the youth park, which could no longer be called a park. It was more crowded and noisy than Ximending. The air was worse than in a coffee shop, the trees were withered, the grass was yellow, and even the sunshine was not bright. I crossed the park, thinking of my youth, and my heart ached. Why is it so difficult to find pure tranquility in this era? If we want clear and pure happiness, we cannot find it in the green mountains and clear waters we see, the peaceful and harmonious sounds we hear, the clean air we smell, the fragrant plants we taste, or the refreshing and pure land we feel. The only way to enjoy Qingxuan is to stay in our own small world and cleanse our minds, because the more material possessions we have, the more we lose the pure pleasure of life. Modern people find joy in eating fried crickets in smoky and unsanitary beer bars, singing loudly in dark and cramped karaoke rooms, drinking excessively in shabby countryside taverns, or endlessly playing the same card game in a small room. They think that these impure and indulgent lifestyles are full of happiness, but in reality, they are pitiful. Why do modern people find pleasure in impurity, and bitterness in purity? When a person finds pleasure in impurity, they lose the ability to appreciate the clarity of life. And when the impure pleasure fades away and the impure heart rises again, life becomes tasteless. This reminds me of another poem by Su Dongpo. The pear blossoms are pale white, the willows deep green. When willow fluff flies, flowers fill the city scene. Gazing sadly from the east fence at a lone snowy tree, how often in life will we experience such clarity? Su Dongpo stood by the east fence and gazed at the pear blossoms outside. The willow fluff filled the entire city with flowers, but the pear blossom on the east fence extended out from the deep green willow tree like snow, with a kind of melancholic beauty. However, how many times in life can we see such clear and pure beauty? This is the temperament of the great literary figures throughout the ages. This is what the Qing dynasty painter, Sheng Dashu, said in his Records of Lounging in the Valley and Mountains. The mountains have nothing to offer, but the ridges are full of white clouds, which can only bring self-enjoyment and cannot be given to others. This is what truly distinguishes first-rate individuals. What is a first-rate individual? A first-rate individual is someone who can appreciate the taste of life in pure tranquility. A first-rate individual is someone who can find the taste of pure tranquility in the world. Once in a lifetime, I am fond of the concept of once in a lifetime in the tea ceremony. It means that every time we sit down with friends to drink tea, we should cherish it deeply, because this might be the only time in our life that we can enjoy tea in this way. Once it is gone, it will never come back again. We only have one gathering in a lifetime, and we only have one meeting like this, which makes us sink into a feeling of cherishing and profoundness when drinking tea, so as not to miss the most beautiful chance. Although life is impermanent, it is not necessarily too short. We may often sit down and drink tea with good friends, but each time is unique and different from any past or future meetings. Sometimes, a person's whole life is just for one special encounter. This is a sentence that I like to give to my friends. Meeting with someone you love is always so fleeting. But for this brief encounter, we have gone through the long journey of life, enduring countless storms and hardships. Finally, we have made it to this cold winter night, where we can have a heartfelt meeting with our close friends. Upon reflection, weren't all the roads we walked in the past preparing us for this short meeting of a few hours? This profound encounter is the sum of the past 40 years. This smile during this meeting is the most beautiful flower that has bloomed on the vast prairie of joy, sadness, and happiness. This deep silence is the accumulation of meaningful or meaningless words into a pure white wave. This cup of tea in front of us, please savor it, because the tea tree nurtured by heaven and earth was born for this cup. When I am drinking tea with good friends, my imagination runs wild, and I always try to keep their faces, words, and smiles in my memory box, hoping to treasure everything and not let any moments slip away. The concept of once in a lifetime may seem a bit melancholic, but there is profound beauty in the melancholy, making us willing to entrust, give, and cherish every cup of tea and every friend with beauty and love. Drinking tea is not the only thing that is once in a lifetime. Meeting with someone with whom we have a deep connection, in the vast time and space of inexplicable karma, is also a once-in-a-lifetime event. If we cherish it deeply, even though we will have to part with them eventually, when we say goodbye at the door, the regret may be slightly eased. Therefore, the concept of once in a lifetime in the tea ceremony not only talks about the difficulty of meeting, but also about entering a realm of Tao with the deepest sense of cherishing and blessing. Only when we preserve the love of heaven and earth and the beauty in our hearts, can we be gently ignited before the spring breeze blows. Cold autumn dew, take care. In the quiet autumn frost, trees are sparse with a few green and red branches. When winter arrives, the chilly air reaches the ends of the earth, and we drift alone. Lin Qingxuan, I went to Qingxuan to see the cherry blossoms. In spring, the cherry blossoms are in full bloom, like red stars that didn't sleep last night, coming down to earth to play, and they won't have time to return to heaven. Every year when the cherry blossoms are in full bloom, I feel reluctant to leave. I go to the mountains to meet the cherry blossoms every 2 or 3 days. I like to walk in the cherry blossom forest, stepping on the fallen petals. How bustling the world is! How easily it withers! The cherry blossoms have taught me that no matter how short the time is, everything must be used to bloom. If the moment of blooming is beautiful, then even if it withers silently, it will leave a beautiful mark. Meeting the cherry blossoms makes me feel that our souls resonate with them. We preserve the love of heaven and earth and preserve beauty in our hearts. Only then can we be gently ignited by the spring breeze. Let's go soak in a hot spring after passing through the cherry blossom forest. The white hot springs of Qingxuan, like dreamy milk flowers, make people feel like they are not in this world. Especially when sitting on the outdoor hot spring slope, overlooking the little grass mountain, watching the thick fog of the sunset come in and envelop the entire mountain forest. The mountain is gentle, the fog is gentle, the cherry blossoms are gentle, and the heart is the starting point of all gentleness. I hope to maintain this gentle mood forever. As I soak in the hot spring pool and look at the vast white fog, a sentence suddenly pops up from the bottom of my heart. Cold autumn dew, take care. This is the most commonly used sentence in the letters my mother wrote to me. I left my hometown at the age of 15 to attend high school in a faraway city. Every week, my mother would write me a letter. My mother's letters had a fixed format, and she wrote to Qingxuan. In the spring, she often ended her letters with "peaceful spring day," and in the winter, she always wrote, "Cold autumn dew, take care." From high school to college graduation, my mother's greetings never changed. She only stopped writing me letters when I got a phone. Every weekend in the winter, I looked forward to receiving a letter from my mother. Whenever I saw "Cold autumn dew, take care," my heart was filled with infinite warmth. In this simple phrase, my mother's deep love is hidden. Love is vast, denser than fog. Compared with deep emotions, words seem insignificant. Writers want to describe emotions, painters want to paint emotions, musicians want to play emotions, but it's all just an attempt. We use many complex techniques, detailed symbols, beautiful symbols, and rich metaphors, only to find that the simplest things can best highlight the spirit, and the most primitive things may have the possibility of lasting forever. We spend a lot of time building a palace, but in the end, we only see the small tip of the tower. In a farther place, or even without the tower tip, we can only hear the sound of the bell inside the tower. Take care of yourself. On a cold and dewy day, my mother said to me. Her words still warm my heart, even years after she passed away. Her love was simple but abundant, and her heart was deep and profound. This is the most precious legacy my mother left me. Her life was full of the beauty of simple living, beauty in nature, beauty in simplicity, and beauty in subtlety. I hope my literature can continually approach this state. After washing away all the dust, I descended the mountain with a faint scent of sulfur. I rolled down the car window, letting the mountain breeze brush against my cheeks. The breeze was gentle and silent, carrying a fragrance that was indescribable. The red mountain cherry blossoms, orange maple leaves, and white camellias followed the mountain breeze, greeting me face to face. Take care of yourself, my mother's words echoed in my mind as I recited them softly. It felt like her words could nourish the heavens and the earth. I felt like my mother, who was in a distant, dreamlike, and unknown realm, could smile and listen to me. 1,000 gold for one step. There was a young man who died of starvation at the age of 20 because he had nothing to eat. When he arrived in front of the king of hell, the king looked up his record and found that the young man was supposed to live until he was 60 years old and would have 1,200 gold coins worth of blessings in his life. He should not have died so young. The king of hell thought to himself, could it be that the god of wealth embezzled this money? So he called the god of wealth over to question him. The god of wealth said, I saw that this person had a good talent for writing in his fate. If he wrote some articles, he would definitely prosper. So I gave the 1,200 gold coins to the god of literature. Then the king of hell called the god of literature to ask. The god of literature said, although this person has a talent for writing, he is naturally restless, and I am afraid that he may not prosper in writing. However, he is also talented in martial arts. If he chooses to pursue martial arts, he may have a better future. So I gave the 1,200 gold coins to the god of war. The king of hell then called the god of war to ask. The god of war said, although this person is talented in both writing and martial arts, he is extremely lazy. I'm afraid it won't be easy to give him the 1,200 gold coins, whether in writing or martial arts. So I gave the gold coins to the earth god. Then the king of hell called the earth god. Not. The land god said, this person is just too lazy. I'm afraid he won't be able to get the gold, so I buried it in the field where his father used to farm. As long as he comes out of the house and digs with a hoe, he'll find the gold. Unfortunately, after his father died, he never dug a single hoe and died of hunger. Finally, the king of hell ruled, deservedly so, and confiscated 1,200 taels of gold. This is a popular folklore with profound implications. No matter how great a person's blessings or talents may be, they are useless if they refuse to live a hard-working life. At the same time, there is another meaning. For those who are willing to practice, every step and every hoe is worth 1,200 taels of gold. If one does not practice, even if the gold is buried nearby, it cannot be seen. In fact, this is a very simple truth. People in the agricultural society of the past can easily understand that only practice is the only truth, and crops in the fields grow little by little through constant cultivation and practice. Fantasies are good theories that are not managed or of no help to the growth of a grain of rice. In modern society, due to the diversity of society, the number of people who have fantasies has gradually increased. Everyone hopes to have some spare time to gain without effort and some way to get rich quick. Those who work honestly are considered foolish and can only continue to be content with their poverty. I know many people who live their lives honestly in society. They neither know what stocks are nor understand how to invest in property. Over time, seeing many suddenly prosperous people around them, they can't help but feel unbalanced, and because of this, they are also unstable. For example, we hear that someone spent over 300,000 yuan on a banquet in one evening. For example, we hear that a wealthy man invites relatives and friends to leave Taiwan on a private jet to show off his financial power. For example, we hear that someone goes to a hotel to drink and puts a stack of 1,000 yuan bills on the table. Anyone who lights a cigarette, sends a towel, or serves a dish will receive 1,000 yuan. For example, we see in the newspaper that some wealthy people go to the casino to gamble after dinner, and each of them has several 100 million yuan. In this society, there are indeed many people who squander money in a night of revelry, which is the total sum of money that hardworking people can earn in their lifetime. What is ridiculous is that the income tax paid by these wealthy tycoons may be less than that of a clerk. However, there is no need to feel sad because in terms of time, it is very fair. A night of debauchery is the same as a night of meditation and contemplation. Spending tens of thousands of yuan in one night is equal to listening to music for one night in terms of time. However, in terms of the joy of the mind and the enlightenment of the spirit, perhaps simple and ordinary days are more beneficial. What makes life feel abundant is not the expansion of desire but the touch of the soul in the depths of the heart. What makes life valuable is not how much wealth one possesses but how deep one's wisdom is developed. What makes life meaningful is not rushing towards a specific goal but finding peace and steadfastness in every step. Money is good, but having a good heart is even better. 11. Possession. When Master Xingyun retired from his position, many people felt regretful that he left the Buddha Light Mountain. He spoke some very wise words. If Buddha Light Mountain belongs to me, then it belongs to me. Because everything in nature, from the smallest flowers and plants to the vast mountains and rivers, if you think it's yours, then it's yours. If Buddha Light Mountain doesn't belong to me, then it doesn't belong to me. Because not to mention such a large garden as Buddha Light Mountain cannot be owned by individuals, even one's own body cannot be possessed. These two sentences are very wise because the Master truly saw the essence of life. Humans have two natures. One is extremely vast and broad, and the other is extremely small and humble. When our mind is vast, we can appreciate and tolerate everything, but compared to what we can appreciate and tolerate, we are too small. Understanding this layer, a person's possession of things should be re-understood. We often think in our hearts, this is my house, this is my car, this is my land, this is my property, this is mine, that is mine. Because we have too many things, we are afraid of losing them, and fear of losing is the root of pain. Therefore, with possession comes burden and one cannot be free. When we are old and weak, even if we have many things, we cannot enjoy them. We have lost them, and in the end, with both hands empty, we cannot hold on to any treasures. In the Buddhist scriptures, everything in the mundane world is not for possession, but for giving up. A person who is willing to give up everything is truly strong and free, while a person who possesses everything is the source of sinking and pain. We are ordinary people in this world and it's hard to reach that level, but we can train ourselves to possess, not in material desires, but in the spirit. We can appreciate, dedicate, and love all the good things in our spirit without having to collect them as our own. If we can do so, we can be free from the chase of material desires and from the obsession with things. Then, life is like a wide robe, a gentle breeze blowing. What is there to worry about? In his commentary on Dream of the Red Chamber, Wang Guowei, a literary figure in the late Qing dynasty, once said, "The fish in the moat is what Zhuangzi and Hizzi enjoyed, but the fisherman catches them with nets and traps. The tree by the dance altar is where Kangzi and Zhengzi rested, but the woodcutter fells them with axes." If things have no form and the mind has no place to dwell, then even the wealthy man and the privileged son who sacrifice everything for money will never have the joy of riding the horses of Cao Ba and Han Gan, or the pleasure of seeing the pine trees painted by Bai Hong and Wei Yan and thinking of their use as building materials. Who would seek the beauty of Athens for marriage or the pleasure of riding in the Golden Tower for taxation? This is really great. When a person only thinks of eating fish when seeing them, cutting down trees when seeing them, riding horses when seeing the paintings of great artists, and building houses with beautiful pine trees, then these people can never possess the beauty of the fish swimming freely, the magnificence of the trees, the elegance of the horses, and the uniqueness of the pine trees. They desire too much and suffer even more. How can they experience any true happiness? 12. Sending a bright moon to him. Once upon a time, a Zen master lived in a thatched cottage in the mountains. One night, he took a walk in the woods under the bright moonlight and suddenly realized the prajna wisdom of his true nature. He joyfully returned to his home only to find that a thief had visited his cottage, but had not found any valuable items to steal. The Zen master had been waiting outside the door, afraid to startle the thief, so he had taken off his outer robe and held it in his hands. When the thief was leaving, he met the Zen master at the door. The Zen master said to the thief, "You came all the way here to see me. I can't let you leave empty-handed. It's cold tonight, take this robe with you." He draped the robe over the thief's shoulders, leaving the thief bewildered. The thief hung his head and slipped away. The Zen master watched the thief's back disappear into the bright moonlight, feeling sorry for him. He said, "Poor fellow. I hope I could send a bright moon to him." Although the Zen master couldn't actually send the moon to the thief, his words revealed a deeper meaning. In Zen philosophy, the moon symbolizes one's true nature. The moon is often used to represent the self-purity that Zen practitioners strive to attain. To the Zen master, the thief was like the moon hidden behind dark clouds, obscured by desires. It was a great pity that the thief could not see his own true nature. After watching the thief leave, the Zen master returned to his cottage and meditated naked, staring at the moon outside the window. He entered a deep state of concentration. The next day, the Zen master emerged from his deep meditative state and saw the robe he had given to the thief, neatly folded and placed at the door. He was overjoyed and murmured, "I finally sent him a bright moon." Is it possible to send the moon? This is an interesting story. In our lives, intangible things cannot be given as gifts. We cannot tell a beggar on the street, "I'm giving you some compassion." We can only put money in the box, and the beggar can only feel the level of compassion through the amount of money given. Similarly, we cannot say to a loved one, "I'm giving you 100 units of love." We can only give them 100 roses, and they can only estimate the degree of love through the number of roses, even though this estimation may not accurately reflect the actual situation. Perhaps the love of someone who sends roses is more sincere and passionate than the person who sends a diamond ring. Similarly, priceless things such as friendship, justice, happiness, peace, wisdom, and the like cannot be measured by tangible objects. It is one of life's predicaments that we must constantly be mindful of how to convey the essence of spiritual information through visible and tangible things. Regrettably, there is often a gap in the process of transmission, which causes blood relatives to turn against each other, loyal friends to resent each other, loving couples to separate, and lovers to become ordinary people. These intangible yet valuable emotions are similar to certain characteristics of Zen, which are to be understood but not to be spoken of, not relying on words, but by transmission outside the scriptures, presenting the moment, deviating the thought, clouds in the blue sky, water in a bottle, and ordinary mind is the way. There is almost no fixed method in the world to train people to express intangible things. Therefore, the only way to train the expression of intangible emotions is to return to oneself and enrich one's personality, so that one can possess a sincere and selfless character. In this way, emotions become not only a means of expression but also a way of expressing oneself. When a person can sincerely and openly express emotions, even the bright moon can be given to others, and the other party can really receive it. We must always maintain a kind, tolerant, and clear-minded disposition, and it is possible to send out many bright moons, not just one. This is because the bright moon is not a matter of sending, but a matter of reflecting and illuminating each other's brightness. This is why the Zen master said, "I wish I could send him a bright moon." This is the fragrance of true personality, which makes thieves feel ashamed and leads them to the path of enlightenment through reflection. 13. Human scenery. Every time I leave the funeral home on Minquan East Road, I can't help but look up at the sky and take a deep breath with a sense of sadness. Although the air in Taipei is not clean, it still makes me feel grateful that we can breathe deeply. Then, I take a slow walk or go to the nearby Hotel Eclat Taipei to have a cup of hot coffee in the cafe, full of 18th century European style. I always think to myself, enjoy this cup of coffee. After 100 years, we will no longer be in this world. Of course, according to the concept of reincarnation, maybe we can still breathe deeply, look at the sky, and enjoy a cup of good coffee in the future, but who knows what will happen after 100 years? Who can be sure? After finishing my coffee and leaving the cafe, I think to myself, let's welcome every day sincerely. Time is so precious. Treat our family and friends sincerely. After 100 years, we will not have the chance to express our thoughts. Look at the trees on the roadside and the stars in the sky with a clear and joyful mind. One day, we will not be able to see them anymore. Many things in this world seem distant, but in fact, they are not. For example, on Minquan East Road, there is the Rongxing Garden, which is often the place where newlyweds take wedding photos because of its beautiful scenery. A little further ahead is the Enzugang Temple, where many people pray for children, wealth, and blessings in this life. A little further on is the Taipei Funeral Home. It only takes a little over 10 minutes to walk this route. Every day, people are born, grow old, get sick, and die. The distance is so close. All religions and methods are designed to inspire us to pursue the afterlife and hope to find an eternal path. But the afterlife and eternity begin only after our current life ends. Who can truly grasp it? This makes me understand what the Zen master said, "Look at your feet." The present moment is such a compassionate and insightful perspective. If we cannot face the present reality, how can we attain the afterlife? Even the Pure Land practitioner, who places the greatest emphasis on rebirth, knows, without sufficient good roots, blessings, and causal connections, one cannot be reborn in that land. Good roots and blessings are cultivated and born at this moment and this place. I remember someone once asked a Zen master, "How can I maintain mindfulness at the time of death and benefit from the recitation of sutras to be reborn in the Pure Land?" The Zen master replied, "Start with mindfulness now, and start reciting sutras for yourself now." This is the practice of Pure Land, but it is also the style of Zen. Only by cherishing the present moment can one best practice loving life. Only by cherishing the present, can the past memories be proved, and the future dreams realized. People who are satiated with food and spend the whole day pondering where life comes from, where they will go after death, and what practical significance it has for their lives, often forget to eat breakfast and suffer from insomnia at night because of too many speculations about the past and the future. Therefore, living in the present moment is the most authentic way of life for human beings. I enjoy the stories of Master Ichu, a Zen master. One day, while passing by a beach, a group of fishermen begged him to perform a funeral rite for a deceased fisherman. The fisherman had wanted to be buried in a nearby temple, but the temple required 15 taels of gold, which the poor fisherman could not afford. Therefore, he had to settle for a water burial. Master Ichu readily agreed and placed the fisherman's body on a small boat. He rowed the boat to the center of the lake and loudly proclaimed, "All aquatic creatures in the sea, please listen carefully." This fisherman, as long as he had a breath left in him, intended to hunt and catch you to feed his wife and children, to sustain his ephemeral life. Now that my time has come, I shall sink his body into the sea, offering it as an opportunity for you to avenge your fellow companions. Eat my flesh. And with that, he threw the body into the water. On his return to the shore, Master Ichu recited a poem, "In times of famine, melon seeds, eggplants, and the waters of the Yancheng River become offerings." Master Ichu died at the age of 88, and his last words were, 30 years of obscurity, 30 years of serenity, 60 years of obscurity and serenity. At the end, my body shall turn to dust under the scorching sun in homage to the Brahma. The landscapes of this world are naturally beautiful, and though we may dream of a better one, we must first learn to recognize the beauty around us. If we lack the wisdom to see the good in the world, how can we appreciate the beauty of a heavenly realm? Life is full of suffering, as anyone with a bit of awareness can attest. But take the pearl oyster, for example. When it is wounded, it gradually forms a beautiful pearl at the site of the injury. Similarly, those with the quality of the pearl oyster can see through the illusions of this world when they suffer, gaining insight into the essence of life. And in this way, beautiful pearls are formed. Escaping from the hardships of life is not a Zen practitioner's duty. Rather, the task is to cultivate the quality of the pearl oyster, to maintain a clear mind and spirit, to open up the tightly closed shell in times of ease, to face life naturally, and to use a gentle heart to heal the wounds of life and fashion a precious pearl from the pain and troubles within. After finishing my coffee, I passed by a funeral home once again, and my heart was filled with good wishes. I wished for the departed to go to a better place and for the living to treasure the enlightenment gained from today's experience and become people with the quality of the pearl oyster. With such thoughts, my sorrows dissipated, and I felt empowered to face the sunshine of this moment with an open heart. Once, a Zen master was asked, "What is the best way to alleviate pain and suffering?" The master replied, "Accept pain when it comes, face death calmly when it is due." This is the best way to alleviate pain and suffering. Pain or death is something everyone dislikes, but if we cannot savor pain deeply, how can we appreciate the true taste of peace and joy? If we cannot understand death, how can we cherish the time we have? Another Zen master asked his disciple, "Where do heat and cold go?" The disciple replied, "They go where there is no heat or cold." The master said, "When it's cold, you'll freeze to death." In this world, there is no place without cold or heat to escape the anguish of life. Therefore, the best way to deal with it is to dive into the water or embrace the fire, not to avoid the cold or heat, so that they will have no power over us. This is the state of single-mindedness. The suffering of contemporary people lies in longing for summer during winter and wishing for cooler temperatures during the scorching heat. When it's sunny, they yearn for the beauty of the rain, but when the rainy season arrives, they complain about the bad weather. As a result, the true essence of life is wasted. Single-mindedness means living in every moment, embracing the unpredictable changes in life. It is like using a hammer to crack a walnut. Sometimes the walnut is dull, sometimes it looks good on the outside but is rotten on the inside. But in every moment, we should embrace a positive outlook. Of course, if we could live like Su Dongpo said, "When nothing is pressing, sleep early; when prosperous, take a leisurely walk; when hungry, eat simple food," that would be ideal. Unfortunately, in modern society, there are hardly any people who have nothing to do, sleep early, take leisurely walks, or eat simple food. Therefore, it is more valuable than ever to learn how to live with a single-minded attitude. Su Dongpo also said in Spring and Autumn Annals, "It is easy to live in poverty and hardship, but it is difficult to endure wealth and prosperity. It is easy to work hard, but it is difficult to live leisurely. It is easy to endure pain, but it is difficult to endure itchiness." A person who can live leisurely, endure wealth and prosperity, and endure itchiness is truly a person of Tao. This is Su Dongpo's famous saying, but I have a slightly different view. I believe that living in poverty, enduring hard work, and enduring pain are all equally difficult. Only those who embrace single-mindedness can see poverty and wealth, labor and leisure, pain and itchiness as one whole. That is the true Tao. Living in every moment is true liberation and true freedom. The Zen saying, when eating, just eat. When sleeping, just sleep, can also be said as, when in pain, just feel the pain. When happy, just feel the happiness. This reminds me of what Master Yuanshao said, even if we make every effort, we cannot prevent a flower from withering. Therefore, when a flower withers, we should appreciate its beauty. The greatest meaning of life is not in rushing towards a goal, but in embracing every process. Once, I saw a car advertisement in the newspaper that boasted, from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 6 seconds. This ad reminded me of my grandmother's words, "Are you eating so fast because you want to go die?" Living in hardship, living in happiness, living in blooming, living in withering, living in trouble, living in wisdom, living in restlessness, living in peace. This is the best way to face the suffering of life. 14. Being focused in the present moment. When I was a child, I used to stay at my maternal grandmother's house. There were many cousins, and every time we finished our meal, we would play together. We couldn't sit still during the meal, shoving the food into our mouths hastily, consumed by the excitement of playing. At such moments, my grandmother would knock us on the head with her walking stick and say, "Are you eating so fast that you want to die?" These words stunned me, and then she continued calmly, "How can you know the taste of a bowl of rice if you eat so quickly?" I remembered her words deeply, and from then on, I ate with focus, finishing my meal before going out to play. I didn't think much of these 2 sentences before, but as I grew older, I realized their profound meaning. They embody the Zen spirit of eating when eating, sleeping when sleeping, living in the present moment. Living in the present may seem like an ordinary expression, but it is, in fact, a courageous and profound mindset. It means cutting off the past and the future, so that our thoughts are focused in the present moment. If one can be focused in the present moment all the time, then no difficulties or pains can hold them back. Being focused in the present moment is the most effective and easiest way to alleviate the waves, anxieties, pains, and chaos of life. Although happiness and suffering are real experiences, they are just empty appearances. If one can stay present in every moment, then suffering won't feel as unbearable, and happiness won't be as overwhelming. Unfortunately, most people are focused on several things at once, worried about the past, fearful of the future, or they have multiple emotions arising from the present moment. Over time, we are deceived by our feelings, unable to go beyond them. If one cannot be focused in the present moment, it is because they are more concerned with the outcome than the process. Few people realize that all the processes are linked to the outcome. If one cannot savor the sweetness of rice while eating, how can they savor the essence of life? If one cannot understand the differences between rice types, such as peng lai rice, and glutinous rice, how can they deeply understand the joys and sorrows of life? Therefore, eating, sleeping, and drinking tea may seem trivial in life, but they can be transformed into extraordinary moments by being focused in the present moment. One can approach life with a practical attitude, and attain inner peace and ease. 15. Gentle Half-Tale. Upon reading the Prescription for the Heart by Master Wuji, it is said that whether it is managing the family, governing the country, studying the Tao, or cultivating oneself, one must first take 10 wonderful medicines to achieve success. What are these 10 wonderful medicines? He said, a good stomach, a compassionate heart, gentle half-li, 3 parts of reason, faithful conduct is essential, a straight character, filial piety is of utmost importance. Honesty is essential. The yin and yang balance is used in full. Flexibility is not limited by quantity. How should one take these 10 wonderful medicines? He also said, fry these medicines in a broad-minded pot. Don't let it burn. Don't let it be restless. Remove 3 parts of the fire nature. Grind it into a fine powder in a flat pan. Consider it thrice before taking it. Shape it into pills using the 6 paramitas. The size should be like a bodhi seed. Take 3 pills a day, anytime, and swallow them with warm soup. If you can take them in this way, there will be no illness that cannot be cured. Prescription for the heart is written in vernacular Chinese, so its meaning is not difficult to understand. It must be explained here that the 6 paramitas are the practices of a bodhisattva, with 6 methods: giving, ethics, patience, diligence, meditation, and wisdom. A bodhisattva uses these 6 methods to lead people across the sea of life and death to the other shore of nirvana. Bodhi seeds are the seeds of the Bodhi tree, which can be used as prayer beads. When used in an abstract sense, Bodhi means enlightenment. I believe that whether or not one is a Buddhist, taking this heart medicine 3 times a day can not only bring peace of mind but also make one feel worthy of heaven and earth. Even if one can only take 3 or 4 of these medicines a day, it can still help prevent illness and prolong life. If that is impossible, then just taking a gentle half-li every day may also be enough to alleviate disasters and reduce misfortunes. Although this heart medicine has only 10 ingredients, it is full of wisdom and enlightenment. Because, for Buddhists, all the pains and illnesses of the body are caused by mental illness. The Buddha Sakyamuni classified mental illnesses into 3 types: greed, anger, and ignorance. Only by eliminating these 3 illnesses can one have a pure spiritual world, and only then can one be happy in body and mind, without obstacles or fears, and far away from delusional dreams. Therefore, the entry point for all Buddhist scriptures is the Heart Sutra, and the highest level of achieving Buddhahood also depends on the mind. The exploration and contemplation of the mind can be seen throughout Buddhist scriptures. The Buddha once said, "The heavens, humans, ghosts, and hell are all created by the mind." The Sarangama Sutra, he also said, "Those who can control their minds and follow the path have the greatest power." I struggled with my mind for countless kalpas before attaining Buddhahood and standing alone in the 3 realms. All is created by the mind. The Sutra of the 5 Aggregates, the commentary on the chapter of 5 Sufferings, says that for good people, the mind is like nectar, while for evil people, the mind is like a poisonous root. Therefore, when it comes to healing illness, we should start by healing the mind, and when it comes to saving people, we should start by saving the mind. For example, in the Sarangama Sutra, the Buddha said, "The lamp can illuminate colors." Those who understand this know that it is not the lamp that sees things, but the eye that uses the lamp to see. And it is not the eye that sees things, but the mind that uses the eye to perceive the nature of things. In other words, if a person doesn't understand things, it's not because there's something wrong with their eyes or the things themselves, but because there's something wrong with their mind. If we can cure the mind, the eyes will be able to discern things, and understanding will become clear. The Medicine for the Mind, by Master Wuji, addresses the root of issues related to life and character. In his book of Mind Medicine, he emphasizes the importance of cultivating the heart and mind in the pursuit of spiritual development. In the Bloodline Treatise, the founder of Chan Buddhism, Bodhidharma, wrote a brilliant passage about the strengthening of the mind. He said, "Without the mind, you cannot find the Buddha." The Buddha is created by the mind, so why look for the Buddha outside the mind? The past and present Buddhas all teach the mind, and the mind is the Buddha. The Buddha is the mind, and there is no Buddha outside the mind. If you think there is a Buddha outside the mind, where is it? The mind is the Buddha, and the Buddha is the mind. Do not seek the Buddha outside the mind, but realize that the mind itself is the Buddha. Therefore, Chan Buddhism has always pursued the cultivation of the original mind, believing that one cannot attain enlightenment without cultivating, understanding, and purifying the heart and mind. As the sixth patriarch, Huineng, said, in all activities, whether sitting, standing, walking, or lying down, always maintain a straight and undivided mind. Cultivate a straight and undivided mind, and do not cling to any phenomena. Knowing the importance of the mind in a meaningful life, we can return to Master Wuji's medicine for the mind, which can be applied by anyone, anywhere in the world. As many of these values are disappearing in modern society, they are worth serious consideration. Imagine if everyone had good digestion, a compassionate heart, some tenderness, and wisdom, kept their promises to others, were loyal to their friends, respected their parents, and acted with integrity in all aspects of life. How could there be any problems in society? The key to world peace is having these elements within every individual's heart and mind. 16. In the microcosm of love, there is a 5-character poem by Su Dongpo that I am particularly fond of. Returning swallows nudge the hanging screen, dazed flies are lured out by the gaping window. Love for the mice leaves crumbs on the mat, pity for the moth forbids turning out the lamp. For a literary giant like Su Dongpo, this poem is quite simple and unremarkable. But upon reading it, my heart trembles deeply, for hidden behind these simple lines is a great and delicate heart. The hanging screen that he hooks and dare not let down is so that the returning swallows may come home. Seeing the foolish flies banging against the window, he quickly opens the door and lets them out. Worried that the mice in his house have nothing to eat, he often leaves a bit of food for them. He does not light the lamp at night so as to cherish the life of the moths. The life of the poet's era is no longer ours, as we no longer have swallows, dazed flies, mice, and moths in our homes. However, we can understand the poet's state of mind, for he observes all things with a very delicate love. In his eyes, he sees the joy of the swallows returning to their nests, the anxiety of the foolish flies trapped, the mood of the mice searching for food, and the pain of the ignorant moths rushing into the flame. What a touching state of mind! There are many of us who do not appreciate the kindness shown to us, who are stingy towards those who suffer around us, and even those who are ignorant of the joys and sorrows of human life, let alone the feelings of other creatures. Compared to this poem, how coarse and vulgar we are. Those who cannot enter the microcosm of love are not only vulgar, but they will also never be able to taste the love of higher levels of the soul. They can only live a plain and monotonous life and cannot find some extraordinary beauty in life. If we only have love and care for people, but do not know that the setting sun and rising moon breathe, that insects, ants, birds, and beasts also have songs of joy and sadness, that there is news from afar in the wind and clouds, that every dog passing by on the roadside has a pleading or resentful gaze, and even that silence carries 1,000 words, then we cannot become a complete person. I am reminded of a poem by Du Mu that complements this poem by Su Dongpo. He writes, "Blood still fresh on the double eagle's fallen wings, whipping the horse, he rises up once more. Do not aim your arrows at the southern migrating geese, lest you send a letter home to a distant loved one. 17. Writing on water. The journey of life is like writing on water, flowing downstream. When we try to look back, we always lose track because writing on water, no matter how hard we try, the water is impermanent and cannot hold its form. Therefore, if we try to dwell on past happiness, we are only inviting trouble. And if we frequently recall our suffering, we will only intensify our pain. The joys and sorrows, the cheers and laments of our life's journey, are only like writing on water, and they will surely flow away with time. Just as impermanence has no substance, the feelings of the body and mind are just aggregates of circumstances, like water and words. Our bodies are like flowing water, ceaselessly moving day and night, making us age in a flash. Our minds are also like flowing water, never still for a moment, making us live in a state of chaos and confusion. Both body and mind are illusory, just like writing on water. Before we finish writing one stroke, the previous stroke has already flowed away to a far distance. Love is also a word written on water. When we say, "I love you," the thought of love has already flowed far away. Beautiful love is a poem written on water, and ordinary love is a document written on water. The vow of love is like a withered leaf floating on the water, falling silently and flowing away. Pure goodness means altruism, compassion, joy, and equanimity. How can body and mind avoid destruction, and how can desire and love remain constant? Since we live on water, let us go with the flow of the water's circumstances. When we see flowers blooming, we know it is because the conditions for blooming are complete. When we see leaves falling, we know it is because the conditions for falling are complete. In a group of strangers, we will always meet those whom we have karma with. When the karma is exhausted, we will forget their names and faces, and they will vanish like a word written on water, dispersed. Why do we sometimes feel fear, horror, sadness, and suffering in life? It is because we only focus on the words we write and forget that they are written on the ever-flowing water. The grass and trees on the water surface are arranged in rows, but they do not look at each other. They go with the flow. People's pain is like floating grass in front, always thinking of the floating wood behind. The water bubbles at the back want to see the floating debris in front. Once we recognize that the words are written on water, we can be free from attachment and fear, and stay away from delusional dreams. Those who cannot see that the journey of life is like writing on water are confused and view the world with a muddled mind. The world will become a web, and they will be caught in the pain of thousands of webs once they touch a strand. When we see that everything is like water, and all things come together by chance, this is how we view the world with wisdom. Then, the world and our body and mind become pure at the same time. We break through the web of circumstances and step onto the path of enlightenment. In the surging waves and rapid whirlpools, as we flow downstream, do we sometimes look up and realize that we are just a word written on water? This realization is the beginning of awakening and the bud of enlightenment.